The Bible is very clear about God's heart for the poor and our responsibility as followers of Christ. Psalm 41:1 says, "Blessed is the one who considers the poor." Proverbs 19:17 says, "Whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done." Well, today I have a first-hand story of a life changed because of someone's generosity thousands of miles away. Edgardo Gonzales was born and raised in the Philippines, and he joins me today to share his journey. Welcome to 100 Huntley Street, Edgardo.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So
Thank
good to have you here. Okay, let's go back to the very beginning, because I want to know what was your reality as a young boy growing up in the Tondo district of Manila?
Yeah, no, actually, you mentioned it, Tondo, Manila. I was born and raised in the Philippines, and it's actually one of the impoverished places in the city. And I came from a big family of 10 kids. Can you imagine?
Wow.
I'm the 8th, and my father passed away or died in 1968. That was when I was only 6 years old.
Okay.
And I have 7 older siblings at that time. So, yeah, life was tough, and we need all the help that we can possibly get. And my mother remained single up to the time of his death at 83.
Yes. I'm sure that must have compounded the issue. So not just only being in a poverty-stricken part of the country, but also the fact that your mom was a single mom raising 10 children.
I know.
I mean, how did she cope?
I know, and it was really only by God's grace. And looking back, I can't help but be emotional every time I think about all the many people who actually supported and helped us, right? And that was when I became a sponsored child together with my 4 other siblings. I know we will talk about that shortly. But yeah, it's just amazing how God is true to his promises, that he will take care of the widow and the poor, and he will use anybody.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, so often here in the West, we see a TV campaign to help support those in need in other parts of the world, but we can feel a little bit removed and even helpless at times, if we're being completely honest, Edgardo. But you're a living testimony, you know, of the responsiveness of someone who said, yes, I want to support a child in this part of the world.
Yeah.
And you're a living testimony to that. How has your family helped?
Actually, I was 6, and my 4 other siblings, we were all under 12, 13 at that time. And through this generosity of some of our, the sponsors, actually, we each have a sponsor from CCF and World Vision, and they just literally gave us material stuff as well. And also, I remember every time I have to write a letter back to our sponsor.
Yes.
And English is not my first language, as you may, know.
You do very well, but yeah. Okay.
But it's just with a grateful heart that we always remember those people who actually became part of our lives. And every week, without fail, at the church, we normally have a little party every Sunday after Sunday school and children's church, and that's when they give away the letters from the sponsors. And here's the bag. I remember every start of the school year, they give us cartolina, school supplies, and even bag, and it's you're lucky to have a shoes.
Yes.
Because sometimes we just have the basics, right? So,
so you reference going to church and Sunday school and being part of a faith community. When did God's love for Edgardo become personal? When did that become real for you?
Wow. Nobody asked me that question. It's a very rare question to ask, but I think when I moved to Saudi Arabia to work at 23 years old, I in the brief I mentioned that after graduating in the Philippines, I moved and worked in Saudi Arabia. I was there all by myself, right, without any family, relatives. I don't even know where Saudi Arabia is, sorry to admit that. But the only thing that caught my attention is the salary at that time.
Yes.
They offer for accountants like me at that time. But I think it was during that time when I say, oh my goodness, Lord, I'm all by myself. I know how I trusted you during my early years, but this is it. You know, like I don't know anybody. I am only counting on your faithfulness and goodness. So here I am. And there you go. I stayed there for 13 years. My wife came back after a year or two, and we all raised our kids in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh.
Amazing.
And we mentioned, and I remember the surprise of everybody when we mentioned that we are migrating to Canada. That was in 1997.
Yes.
Said, how will you do that? You don't have any family in Canada, let alone, you know.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
Said,
a whole new world.
You know what? I said, if God took care of us in Saudi Arabia, got 3 kids there, there's no way He will neglect us in Canada.
Yeah.
And that's when it became real to me, when I moved to Saudi Arabia to work all by myself.
You know, it's amazing that when we find ourselves at the end of our rope, or we don't have the comforts or perhaps what's familiar to us around us, God will come and meet us in that season and in that moment and reveal His love and His intentions for us.
Boy, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's so powerful. You know, there's something more than just food and education that you reference in your book, and we're going to talk about your book in a second because some pretty cool things have happened for you since publishing your book. But you talked about something really powerful that happened for you beyond just getting food or the basic necessities for life or even an education with the sponsorship. What was that?
You know what? I kind of feel that you will ask me that question.
Okay.
And I have this tick mark here because this is actually what I wrote pertaining to that question. It said, time and again, people ask me, what is it like to be a sponsored child? In one of my interviews, I remember saying that because I was once a sponsored child, it is easy for me to believe that no matter what happens, there will always be good people in this broken world. Knowing that there are still so many people who think of what other people need, of where other people sleep, of what other people eat, and of what other people care about, makes me live in peace and harmony with myself and with others. I also realize that it is easy to love when you experience love in the manner that love was designed by God. Unconditional, not self-seeking, patient, and kind. I feel emotional every time I even verbalize that. You know, all these goods, the material stuff that we received from CCF and World Vision, every time people ask me, what's next? I say, oh, definitely I don't know what will happen to those kids that you're supporting, those sponsored child that you're, supporting. One thing I know for sure, my sponsor and those people who believed in us gave us not only food, stuff, but hope, self-respect, and inspiration.
That's powerful.
To be the person God wants me to be. Yeah. Sorry.
That is so powerful, Edgardo. And your story has a number of other chapters, and we're getting close to the end of our time together. But I do need to reference your book because celebrated Canadian icon Fred Penner was inspired by your story and wrote a song called Somebody Believe, which became the title of your book. In fact, he writes the foreword in here, and of course with David Toyson, a former president of World Vision Canada. How did this come together?
Okay.
Yeah, that's a very cool story.
In a nutshell, I will mention it in not more than a minute, I hope. In 2015, I was actually, first of all, I work as an accountant at World Vision, and they asked me to to be one of the major donors advisors in 2015. And during that time, they filled me in to do many campaigns and tours and whatever. And so we went to this Tri-City campaign, and lo and behold, they said that I'll be traveling with Fred Penner.
Okay.
I honestly don't know who Fred was until that day. And he pulled me the day of the event. He said, Edgar, I heard you share your story to some of the people in the team last night. Guess what? I was able to write a song because when I moved to my hotel, I
couldn't get your story out of his head.
I said, and so I wrote the lyrics, and I can't sleep. I got the melody. Lo and behold, he sang the song, and the song title is Somebody Believes. And then when we were doing all these press releases many years after, in 2019, God suddenly I felt that. I know it's from the Lord. This is it. This is exactly what I've been waiting for, that opportunity and moment where I can share my story to the bigger audience. And guess what my prayer is? I said, Lord, if Fred Penner will allow me to use the title of his song as the title of the book that I have in my heart for years,
yes,
then I'll take it as a yes. And then when I asked Fred, said, of course, I'll be honored. In fact, I would like to write a foreword, and that's how it is. And guess what made that statement that actually prompted Fred to really write the song? He said, Edgar, I will never forget. I will never forget when you mentioned to the rest of the team the other day that you are who you are because of the many people who believed in you. I remember very casually, I said, oh my goodness, those people who supported us, somehow I felt that that's a way of saying, I believe in you. Like when they gave you the $30, $40 a month to those children who are actually miles and miles away, that's in a way saying, I believe in you, boy, I believe in you, girl. So, and I said in my my young age, I said, if those people believe that I can be someone better than I thought I could become, then who am I not to believe in myself? Yeah. And so that's how I lived over the last 40 years. I've been married for 37 years. Our kids all grew up in Canada. They're all married now. Yes. And they will, in fact, they're very eager to see how this interview goes. Yes.
It's great. It's checking all the boxes. I have to tell you, and I just want to draw our viewers' attention to your book once again. Somebody Believes, and if you want to get your copy, you can go to somebodybelieves.com. That's pretty simple, folks. A powerful story of a life impacted, a whole trajectory of a family changed because someone said yes. And I want to thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you.
Edgardo. Listen, it is so inspiring and so full of hope that anything is possible when we give God our yes, whether we're on this side of the ocean or somewhere across the world. When we say yes, God honors that. And it's also a reminder to those of us living in this part of the world that we have so much to be thankful for, and that we need to respond to those that are in need, whether it's extreme poverty or social injustice. Just such a privilege to speak with you today. I have to say this. I just want our viewers to know that charity really does honor God. And so I want to encourage you to do your best to honor God in your giving. Thank you so much for being with us today, Edgardo.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see what the next chapter holds for you.
Of course, I will be looking for that. Thank you.
Now we're going to go to Robbie Simons. He has some great wisdom for us from the best-selling book of all times.